Welcome to Jazz Time. JazzTime.com is an online store that buys, sells, trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so our customers can easily choose the best watch for themselves in the comfort of their own home. If you like this watch and would like to purchase it at the lowest price anywhere online, click on the link in the description below to buy it at JazzTime.com. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Rolex 1908 reference 52509 in white gold with a black dial. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the history of this watch, then tell you about where it stands in the lineup of other Rolex watches, then talk to you about the case bezel dial bracelet movement, finally try it on and give you my thoughts. So let's start with the history. Well, the 1908, as the name implies, would be a very long time ago, but this watch is a reissue, or a watch that is actually, I should say, as a watch that is paying homage to the year in which Hans Wilsdorf, the founder of Rolex, came up with the name Rolex. He came up with this name Rolex in 1908. So this watch commemorates that by producing a watch named 1908. And so when did this watch come out? Well, it just came out in 2023. So that, as of the making of this video, was just last year. So there's not a lot of history to tell you about on this watch, but that doesn't mean that there isn't something else to talk about. Since the 1908 came out in 2023, it had to have some kind of, it had to come from somewhere. They didn't just create it out of thin air. Now, Rolex generally makes two classes of watches: their dress line, which is the Datejust, and their professional line, also known as sports line, which includes Submariner, Yachtmaster, Daytona, etc., etc. Those two classes of watches. But they also made a third class of watches, which was not as popular, and was at the time was the Cellini. And the Cellini was their total dress line, because the Datejust kind of blurred the lines between an everyday watch and a dress watch. It could be kind of worn either way. But their Cellini line was purely a dress watch, and as such, it was made on a leather strap. That did not, to be honest, the Cellini never did very well. Even though it was a good-looking watch, it never did that well. So they rebranded that model and changed it a bit, changed the name. Still the same idea, dress watch, but they totally actually they didn't change it. They totally revamped it, and they came up with the 1908, and that's what you see in front of you now. Now, as it sits now, it's a much more formidable dress watch, and can actually, in my opinion, as I'm going to talk to you about this review, it can compare with other very strong brands such as Patek Philippe or Audemars Piguet. And so there you have it. That's a little bit about the history of the 1908. Okay, now where it stands in the lineup of other watches, which is the section we're going into now, is that it's the dress version of Rolex. As I said before, they have the sports line, they have the dress line, which is the Datejust, but that can be kind of blurred, and then they have the pure dress watch, and that's what you see here. Now, as of 24, they only make 4 variations. They either make it in white gold or yellow gold, and they make with a black dial or a white dial. And I believe that over time they're going to start making more variations of the 1908 with complications. This one has just time only, and they're going to start making with date, with complication, maybe even with moon phase. Who knows what they're going to do with it? Probably they're going to do a lot with it. But when they first release it, that's all they do, just time only. The simplest, most basic one is what you see here. Okay, so that's a little bit where it stands in the lineup. Now, and it doesn't look like, by the way, like any other Datejust. It doesn't even really look like the old Cellinis. The old Cellinis, to be honest, did not look that great. And it obviously doesn't look like a sports watch. And it's their only watch that comes on a leather strap. Okay? And leather straps typically are dress watches. So it makes sense. Now Rolex is actually covering every single watch section. They're covering pure sports in Daytona, Submariners, etc., tool watches or sports watches. They're covering the middle ground between that, which is the Datejust, can be worn as an everyday watch, and they've got tons of variations. And now they're even breaking into the pure dress watch. When I mean dress watch, I mean, you don't wear this playing basketball. You don't even wear this with like you know, in a casual manner. This is something you wear with a suit, tuxedo, a fancy dinner, this kind of thing. Okay, now let's move on to let's talk about the watch itself. Now, let's start with the case. The case is 39 millimeters. Now, for those who don't really know, a dress watch usually is going to be 42 millimeters or smaller, and 42 is big. 40 millimeters is kind of been the standard, but it's still a little bit big, and it's almost encroaching on sports watch territory. At 39, I have to say it's probably the best size. Why do I say that? Well, if you look at other brands such as Patek Philippe, they make their Calatravas somewhere between the size of 36 millimeter, and one of their other Calatravas, the 6119, I believe it's also 39 millimeters. I'm going to check that real quick while I'm talking. Yes, it is 39 millimeters, and it's also a perfect size, and I believe that's the direct competitor to this watch, which I'll get to in a little bit. But anyways, the size 39 makes it perfect. I think the wrist size of a 39 millimeter watch on someone, you can be at somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5 inches, which is an average man's wrist. So it'll still look very good on an average man's wrist, okay, with this 39 millimeter. And if you look at for example, the Audemars Piguet, the Jumbo, which is one of their flagships, is also at 39 millimeters. So anyways, 39 millimeters is really good. I'm not sure how I can convey that else to you other than to just tell you from experience, 39 millimeters is a great size. Okay, that is the case. Now the case itself is made of white gold. Now Rolex has its own gold foundries. They mix their own gold. They say on their website that they do it to like extreme detail, making sure that the proportions of silver, copper, platinum, palladium, etc., are all added correctly so that it maintains the most purest color and every time. I'm not really surprised. I mean, it's kind of to be expected. So at any rate, let's just say the case itself is white gold. Okay, and in somewhat it kind of looks like a oyster case, but not really, and it has some similarities between the oyster case, but I want to make sure you're clear. It's not an oyster case, and it's also not a sports watch case. It's a 1908 case, which is great because they've designed a case to fit the watch, and it's not like copying, an already existing model. It's a completely different case. Not completely different. I can't say it looks completely different, but it does look different. It fits the watch. So it's a 1908 case, which I'm glad that they did a new case for, instead of just taking an old case and slamming it on here. Okay, that is the case. Now let's talk about the bezel. The bezel is interesting. Now the bezel, at first glance, you might just look at it and go, okay, it's a domed bezel. But you'll notice on the edge of the dome, on the inner circle, it's domed, but on the outer portion, it's fluted. Now you might wonder, why did they do that? Well, if they made it a fluted bezel, then it would be a Datejust. So if they made a dome bezel, well, it wouldn't have that same heritage, the same DNA of Rolex running through it, because the bezel being fluted is the most iconic part of the Rolex, which makes sense. So what did they do? I think they did a great job, actually. They incorporated half the dome bezel and half the fluted bezel, and the result, at first, if I just heard it, I might not think it looks that great, but when I see it in person, as I am now, I really think it looks fantastic. I really like it. So there you have it. It's a domed and fluted bezel. They've actually done that on other of their Cellinis. I think they did a double fluted or something like that. It didn't do very well, but doing it this way, which is domed and fluted, really adds a next level of elegance to it, and I really like it. Okay, so that is the bezel. Now let's talk about the dial. Now the dial, as I told you, can either be black or white, and I was just going to tell you, well, it's black, it's white, not a big deal, But on Rolex's website, they're really harping about how they make this bezel or this dial. So I'm going to tell it to you. They say that they have like a super process, and only the masters can make this dial, and it's all done in-house from the initial sketch to the final inspection. Everything's done by Rolex. That's not really anything of surprising. But one thing that I did realize is that they are saying that the the dial makers do either enamel dials, or they do a technique which deposits a thin film of material in a vacuum environment, and that's how they make it. It's called magnetron sputtering. I've never heard of this, but basically, as they're describing it, it's a very complex way to make a dial in the most modern way. The old way was enameling, which is you bake it in like this super hot oven, and it like makes it, I don't know, better. I'm not really sure, but I know that Patek Philippe does this because they're a very traditional company. But Rolex is a traditional company, but they are melting both the cutting edge technology, as they call this, magnetron sputtering of the dial, with old methods. So, what can I say? The result is what you see here, and I think we can all agree that the dial looks very nice. So there you have it. And what else I can say about this dial is that you got a very interesting hour hand. You got this little circle thing on the hour hand, and then on the minute hand, you got this two-edged sword, which is also a departure from any other hands that they make. And it looks quite nice. And I like that they did this Arabic number at 12, 3, and 9. And then they did just the indexes. It gives the watch some character to it. It has like a lot, kind of a lot going on, or at least more going on, as opposed to if they just did it all with index markers. Okay, now let's move on to the case, the movement here, which is actually very impressive to look at the movement. Now the movement here, as you can see, is open. Now Rolex never did an open case back until 2023, and they did it with this 1908 and the Platinum Daytona. And wonder why? Well, probably because they've never done it before, and they have beautiful movements, so why not show it just simply by opening up the case back? And I think it's a great decision that they opened up the case back and let people look at their beautiful work. Look at this cutout rotor. I mean, it's a top notch. It's as beautiful as any other. It's actually even as beautiful as an Audemars Piguet rotor, if you ask me. Okay, now one of the things that they did here on the movement is by the way, it's a caliber 7140. Is they say they have this Siloxy hairspring with Paraflex shock absorbers, blah, 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 that basically make the watch very shock resistant. Also, it makes the watch have a very long power reserve of, I think, something like 66 hours. And okay, fine. But what I noticed is before, on the older movements, they would have this Coteau de Genève finishing, but they've kind of changed it. The finishing doesn't look like that. It looks like that, but with a Rolex twist, and Rolex calls it a Rolex Coteau de Genève. Okay, I guess they've taken the normal finishing and they've added their own little twist to it, which it looks really nice. Okay, now let's move on to the buckle. Now, the buckle on a leather strap, I have to say, is probably one of the best buckles that you can make on any brand. And it's definitely better than that of Patek. I have to say, it smokes the Patek buckle, and it might even be better than the AP buckle. Although the AP Audemars Piguet buckle, I probably would say is about the same as this one, same level. Okay, why do I say that? It's because it's a double butterfly, as in it opens two ways. Why it's a double? They call it a double folding dual clasp. And why is that important? Is because it allows the buckle to sit right in the center. And if you look at the buckle as it opens up, it looks just like all the other buckles on Rolex, which I believe they've always done the best buckles in the business. I mean, it's incredible the way that they do it, okay? And the way that they make it kind of invisible, but yet still very sturdy, very elegant. And when you pop it open, you get this beautiful buckle underneath. I mean, it's really a sight to behold. and the buckle does, it looks similar to the other buckles, but it doesn't. It's not the same. It opens both ways as opposed to just one side, which is a very smart design on a leather strap because you don't want the tail or one side to stick up more than the other, which is why they did it this way. Okay, now it's time to try it on and give you my thoughts. Now, what are my thoughts? Well, I like the 1908. I think it's great. And I think it's about time Rolex really put on a dress watch that could compete with other top brands such as Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet. And why do I say that? Well, because if you look, they never, for quite some time, they had the Cellini, which, let's be honest, was a flop, which is why they got rid of it. And they only had Datejust and Sportsline, which did wildly well. But now Rolex is doing dress watches, and why I think they're going to do a great job on it is the retail price is in the low 20s. It's around 23,000, something like that. And we're selling it at Jazz Time right around retail price plus tax. And you don't have any weight on it, by the way. So if you want to buy this watch, click on the link in the description below. But where does this watch stand? You know, if you're looking to buy a dress watch, most people will think Patek Philippe. Well, the watch that I believe Patek Philippe has that can compete with this is their Calatrava 5227 or 6119. But the 5227 is like a $40,000 watch. It's like double the price. The 6119 is around 30,000. Now that one is actually low 30s, so it's like $10,000 more. But you know, it's a very comparable to this one. They both have time only, you know, and but the Rolex looks really good and it's cheaper too. And it's also obviously from a top brand, if not even more. I don't know about more top, but they're both excellent brands. It's hard to say which one's better. But anyways, and then you can also compare it to the AP Code 1159, and so it's really competing with these brands. Okay, anyways, so here it is on my wrist. I'm 6 foot tall, 200 pounds, and 7.5 inch wrist. And as you can see, it looks fantastic on me. So if you want to buy it, click on the link in the description below to buy it at jazztime.com.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to Model as seen in video, click on it, and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at jazztime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in Jazz Time, plus the brand, model, and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.